Hey guys, okay, so I'm gonna try to make this kind of quick. This is gonna be my review of American Gods by Neil Gaiman. I loved this book a lot, and I'm sorry if I don't sound too excited. I, have been trying to record this review probably 10 or 15 times, and that's not even an exaggeration. So I'm just kind of sick of talking about this book, but I really loved it when I read it. I read the author's preferred text, which I loved, and also what made it even more amazing was I listened to the 10th anniversary full cast audiobook production that was posted on YouTube. So I got to listen to that while I read it, and it was amazing. And actually, it kind of enhanced my love for one of the characters, which is really cool, but I'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, I had to give it a 4.5 instead of a 5, for two reasons. A, this is my favorite Neil Gaiman book, Stardust. It's beautiful and wonderful, and I don't think that is ever going to change. So because of that, I had to dock this half a star, because I felt like if I gave them the same star rating, you guys would think that I, loved this just as much as this, and that was not true. So, yeah. And then the other thing is, there are quite graphic descriptions in this, which is fine, especially because, if he had downplayed this, or downplayed the descriptions, it wouldn't have matched with the flow of the rest of the book. But, I don't know how to explain it. I'm just very, very squeamish. Incredibly squeamish. Very weirdly so. Things that don't bother most other people will bother me. But also, I would consider the descriptions in here to be pretty graphic. And also, there is a zombie-ish character in this. I'm not gonna say who, how, or why, because that ruins it, but, I absolutely cannot stand zombies. So, yeah, I can't stand zombies. I hate them. I can't watch Walking Dead. I didn't read or watch World War Z. I barely made it through Zombieland. And that was only because there were scenes that didn't have zombies in them. But yeah, I can't stand them. So because of that, that also contributed to the docking half a star. But don't let that hinder you from reading it, because I feel like those scenes are easy to kind of skim if you are squeamish. And again, I'm just a little more, I don't have a high tolerance for those kind of descriptions, so yeah. But anyway, so aside from that, this was amazing. Plot and language and description wise, it was perfect. I have all these little tabs for, I think most of these are actually dialogue points that I loved, but some of them are also descriptions. And yeah, they're just really good. The plot is kind of hard to explain, so I'll just read you guys the back. It says, locked behind bars for 3 years, Shadow did his time, quietly waiting for the magic day when he could return to Eagle Point, Indiana. A man no longer scared of what tomorrow might bring, all he wanted was to be with Laura, the wife he deeply loved, and start a new life. But just days before his release, Laura and Shadow's best friend are killed in an accident. With his life in pieces and nothing to keep him tethered, Shadow accepts a job from a beguiling stranger he meets on the way home, an enigmatic man who calls himself Mr. Wednesday. A trickster and a rogue, Wednesday seems to know more about Shadow than Shadow does himself. Life as Wednesday's bodyguard, driver, and errand boy is far more interesting and dangerous than Shadow ever imagined. It is a job that takes him on a dark and strange road trip and introduces him to a host of eccentric characters whose fates are mysteriously intertwined with his own. Yep, I can't really explain it in any more detail without spoiling things, but there is a larger part of the overall story, or of the overall plot, that you don't find out for a couple of chapters, and that, to me, was the cool part of the overall plot. And I'll talk about that in the spoiler section a little bit. Language and dialogue was beautiful. Oh, and there was also like a subplot to do with this town called Lakeside that was really interesting. And there were 3 main twists. 2 of them were to do with the overall plot, and then 1 of them was to do with Lakeside, and all of those were really cool. One of them I sort of saw coming, like when Shadow says that he figures a certain something out about the main plot, or the main point. I was like, I mean, I didn't see that coming, but at the same time, it's understandable considering everything that we've been reading about. It makes perfect sense. So yeah. Okay, now on to characters. Unfortunately, there's a few characters that I can't talk about except in the spoiler section. But yeah. I didn't really like the character of Laura, and I have to explain why in the spoiler section. Wednesday and Low-Key Lightsmith. I keep saying Lightsmith, but it's Lysmith. Yeah. Wednesday and Low-Key. Love-hate. Love-hate relationship with both of them. I do like Low-Key more than Wednesday, but it's because I knew what to expect from that character. Wednesday, I don't know, some points I'm like, gosh, you're such an ass. And then other points I'm like, actually, that was pretty cool. So I don't really know how I feel about him, to be honest. I love the character of Sam Blackcrow. She was really great. I loved Mr. Nancy. I loved Jackal. I love Ibis. I loved Mad Sweeney. They were all great. And the character that I love the most is Shadow. He's amazing, and within, like, I don't know, not even just within the first couple pages, I was like, okay, you're automatically on the literary boyfriend list, you're amazing. And that, earlier when I was talking about, listening to the book, or listening to the audiobook, he was the character where listening to the audiobook kind of enhanced my love of his character, because the guy that they got to play him, I have no idea who this guy is because the internet will not let me track down his name for some reason. I have tried, but I don't know if he does movies, I don't know if he does TV, if he just does voice acting, if he was only in this, I have no idea. But he was perfect. His voice was perfect for Shadow, his inflections, his portrayal of Shadow, like, almost immediately, he was Shadow for me. And, you know, it got to a point where I was like, man, I kind of want you to audition for the show, just because he was so good. So, yeah, I love Shadow's character, and reading that, listening to that guy portray him just sent it over the top. Okay, so unfortunately now I have to get into spoilers a little bit. Okay, so go away if you have yet to read this, but I do recommend reading the preferred text and listening to the full cast production. And also, if this is your first Gaiman, I wouldn't recommend starting with this if you're just starting out with Neil Gaiman, because starting out with American Gods, if it's your first Gaiman, is kind of like getting thrown into the deep end of the pool when you're learning to swim. It's a little bit, I don't know, might be off-putting. I'll put it that way. I don't know, but I love it. My first Gaiman was actually Ocean at the End of the Lane, and it was very strange, but it was wonderful. So, yeah. But anyway, read this. Do it. Okay, now spoilers. Sorry, go away if you haven't read this. But, okay, so I didn't like Laura because of the way she treated Shadow. Like, I love Shadow's judgment, and I love his personality, but I mean, when it came to, like, the fact that he was still in love with Laura at the end, I was like, are you serious? Because, I mean, she was like, hey, so basically, you weren't really alive. Like, even though you are living, you weren't alive, and the reason why I cheated on you with your best friend is because he felt alive to me. And I was like, you're full of crap. I'm sorry. Especially because she was like, oh, but I still love you, even though I totally was cheating on you the entire time you were in jail. I was like, no, no, no. Okay. Like, I didn't like her at all. And then the whole Wednesday Loki thing, it's a love-hate thing. I can't really explain that further. And then Old Gods, New Gods. I love all the old gods, as I said, but I didn't want to call them gods before because I feel like the old god, new god thing is a bit of a spoiler. I really didn't like any of the new ones at all. I didn't like Techie Boy. I didn't like Media Goddess. Didn't like any of them. And what was I going? Oh, okay. The big thing that I wanted to talk about is the fact that I actually knew that Shadow was Balder going into this book. And I gotta say, like, my friend was so upset that I accidentally found that out. It was a Wikipedia thing. I was trying to find out something about the audiobook, and it turned out that the Wikipedia page doesn't hide spoilers, which I didn't think about beforehand. And it was like, oh yeah, list of characters, Shadow, Balder. And I was like, what? Because I already knew who Balder was as a god, and I was like, that's so cool. But yeah, I already knew who he was going into it, and my friend was kind of mad at me that I accidentally found that out, and I was like, but it was an accident. But I gotta say, I loved it, because I was able to pick up on the clues so much more knowing who he was. Like, it made the clues incredibly obvious. Like, I wonder if people go back and reread this and they're like, oh, duh. Yeah, so that was just, it was really cool for me, and I was really happy that that didn't ruin my experience. Like, for me, it kind of enhanced it, but I'm not recommending, like, you know, don't go and spoil books for yourselves and then feel like it's going to be better. No, I'm not going to do that. So, yeah, I just wanted to talk about that real fast. And, also, really quick, I want to talk about the TV show. They haven't cast anyone yet, but for me, Shadow is Jason Momoa. Like, I want him to be, I want Jason Momoa to be Shadow. He wants to be Shadow. He has said in an interview that as soon as the audition, if it's available to him as an opportunity, he is going to go for it, and he sounded really excited about it, so I hope that he gets it. And, I read this article on Tor.com where the writer picked two different actors, like her top two actors to play each character, and I was so excited because I agreed with every one of her characters except for Mad Sweeney, because she picked Jason Momoa as one of her top two for Shadow. For Loki, one of her top picks was Robert Carlyle, and I thought that that was perfect because he plays Rumpelstiltskin on Once Upon a Time, and I just think he would be perfect. And the reason why I disagreed about her actors for Mad Sweeney, A, I didn't really know who either of them were, and B, my friend Ben, when he read it, when we were talking about it, he said that he pictured James Nesbitt as Mad Sweeney. James Nesbitt is from the Hobbit films, and I completely agreed. Like, I started reading, and I was like, oh, yeah. So, yeah, I don't really have anybody else in mind for any of the other characters, but those three are the three in my head for those characters, and I'm really excited now for the show, and I can't wait to see how that plays out. But I love this book, and if you're still here, you've already read it, I hope. But yeah, so I loved it. Okay, so that was, again, longer than I was hoping, but hopefully not too long to upload. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.